All right, picture this. You hijack a plane, get a huge bag of cash, and then you jump out with a parachute, vanishing forever. Sounds like something straight out of Hollywood, right? Well, this isn't a movie script. This is the real and completely unsolved case of the man known as D.B. Cooper. This quote really says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly sums up the core of this whole thing. One minute there's a hijacker on a plane with a fortune, and the next he's just gone. Poof, vanished into thin air, never to be seen again.
So that leads us to the big one, the question that has obsessed people for more than 50 years now. Just who was Dan Cooper, and what on earth happened to him? That's exactly what we're going to dig into today, piece by incredible piece.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. It all went down on the day before Thanksgiving in 1971. A pretty normal-looking guy, middle-aged, wearing a suit, just strolls up to an airline counter. And that simple moment, it kicked off one of the boldest, most baffling crimes you'll ever hear about.
You know, what's just wild about this whole thing is how calm and collected the guy was. Right after takeoff, he doesn't shout or make a scene. He just hands a note to the flight attendant. The note says he has a bomb. Simple as that. So for the next couple hours, the plane is just circling over Seattle while everyone on the ground is panicking. But when they finally land, he's super cool. He lets the 36 passengers go in exchange for his cash and parachutes, and then tells the pilots, "All right, let's go for another ride." And what did he want? $200,000. Now that was a lot of money back then. He was very specific, all in $20 bills. And here's the really clever part. He asked for 4 parachutes. Why 4? Well, it was a genius move, really. It meant the FBI couldn't just give him one faulty parachute because they wouldn't know which one he'd pick for himself. Smart.
This is where it gets really clear that this was not your average hijacker. He gave the pilots these super specific instructions for how to fly the plane. Fly low, keep the gear down, flaps at a certain angle. All of this stuff would slow the jet way down, making it almost hover in the air, perfect for a skydive. And he picked a Boeing 727 for a reason. It had this unique staircase in the back, the aft stairs, which meant he could get out of the plane in midair without anyone in the cockpit even knowing. This guy absolutely knew his aircraft.
So the plane is back in the sky. He's got his money. He's got his parachutes. Now it was time for the grand finale, the part that would make him a legend.
The pilots are locked up front in the cockpit, totally blind to what's happening. But then, a little after 8 p.m., they feel the plane kinda shudder, a sudden jolt. And that was it. That was the moment. He had lowered the stairs and jumped, just leaped out into a freezing, pitch-black storm over the forests of Washington.
So the plane finally lands in Reno. And of course, Cooper is gone. And what did he leave behind? Almost nothing. Just a black clip-on tie, 8 cigarette butts, and 2 of the parachutes he didn't use. For years, that was all the cops had. That tie eventually gave them a tiny bit of DNA, but back then, it was basically a dead end.
Naturally, the FBI launched a huge search on the ground. They found nothing. For years, the case just went ice cold. Like nothing at all. See, the FBI was pretty smart about the money. They wrote down the serial number of every single $20 bill. The idea was they'd send this list out everywhere, and as soon as Cooper tried to spend any of it, they'd nab him. But nothing. For 9 whole years, not one of those marked bills ever showed up. It was like the money vanished too. And then, out of nowhere, in 1980, the case gets its one and only big break. And it was pure dumb luck. A little kid, an 8-year-old named Brian Ingram, was on vacation with his family. He's just digging in the sand on a riverbank, trying to clear a spot for a campfire. And what does he find? 3 soggy, rotting bundles of cash, buried just under the surface. The FBI checks the serial numbers, and bingo, it's a match. It wasn't much, just under $6,000 of the original ransom, but after almost 10 years of nothing, this was huge. But here's the twist. Instead of cracking the case wide open, this discovery just made things weirder. For one, the spot where the money was found was way off from where they thought Cooper jumped. And get this, scientists said the rubber bands around the cash would have disintegrated after just a year in the river, but they were still intact. So what does that mean? It means the money probably wasn't washed there by the river. Someone might have put it there.
And all of this leads to the central puzzle of D.B. Cooper himself. Was this guy a brilliant expert who planned every detail? Or was he just a reckless amateur who, somehow, against all odds, got lucky?
I mean, just look at the evidence. It's completely contradictory.
On the expert side, he knew all about the 727 special stairs, and he was smart enough to ask for 4 parachutes. But then you look at the amateur side. The guy jumps into a raging storm in the middle of the night wearing just a suit and loafers. And to top it off, one of the parachutes he took was a dummy chute. It was sewn shut for training. It wouldn't have even opened. So which is it? It's a total paradox.
So, with a profile that's all over the place, you can bet the list of suspects is long. Over the decades, a whole parade of men have been pointed to as the real Cooper, but none of them have ever truly stuck.
Oh, and real quick, let's talk about the name. We all know him as D.B. Cooper, but that was actually a mistake. The hijacker called himself Dan Cooper. A reporter got it wrong while chasing a deadline, and D.B. is the name that went down in history. Kind of funny, right? Some people even think Dan Cooper came from an old comic book hero, a Canadian pilot.
So, who have we got? Well, the list is long, but here are some of the greatest hits. There was Richard McCoy, a guy who actually did a very similar hijacking just a few months later. There's Robert Rockstraw, a tough-as-nails Army paratrooper. You've even got Dwayne Weber, who supposedly confessed to his wife on his deathbed. But here's the problem. For every suspect, there's a deal breaker. The DNA from the tie doesn't match, or the flight attendant said, nope, that's not him, or their physical description is just plain wrong. Always a dead end.
So, after all this time, all the searching, all the suspects, all the theories, what are we left with? Where does the legend stand today?
Well, in 2016, the FBI basically threw in the towel. After 45 years of hitting nothing but brick walls, they officially closed the active case. They said, you know what, we've got other things to focus on. And to this day, it remains the only unsolved skyjacking in the history of the United States.
And this is exactly why we're still talking about it. Think about it. They never found a body. They never found his parachute. Most of that 200 grand is still out there somewhere. There's no proof he died, which leaves that one tantalizing possibility open, that he actually survived, that he got away with it.
So we're left with that one final question. Did this guy pull off the perfect crime and just melt back into society, living a quiet life on his stolen money? Or did the brutal wilderness of the Pacific Northwest simply swallow him whole that night, taking his secret to the grave? We just don't know. And for now, the answer is still up there, somewhere in the dark.